Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to another card making video. So today we've got the newest issue of Creative Stamping. This is issue 90 and this is called Winter Stags. So this has got an A4 stamp set as normal and it comes then with a stag and tree stencil as well. So you can see the stencil here, so really beautiful. There's then a coordinating stamp within the stamp set that you'll be able to then use your stencil and then stamp that image on top of it. So we are going to do that for one of our cards today. So along with this stamp set, you've got this really lovely big stag's head with some nice bold sentiments. You've got some borders, you've got loads of little foliage bits and pieces to create really beautiful backgrounds with. So I think this is a really great stamp set, and I think this is going to be perfect to create a masculine card. So that's kind of the theme that I've gone with today. So let's take a quick look inside the magazine. So you can see loads of really great inspiration as usual. So you've got some really beautiful scenes, different kinds of cards. You've got using masking. So loads of different techniques you can do with these. Along with obviously using your embossing folders, you could colour that big stag and create again some really beautiful backgrounds using those extra sort of little stamps that come with the stamp set. So there is, as always, loads of inspiration in the magazine. They are showing you how to combine this stamp set with a paper pack as well. And again, it gives you quite a masculine feel, which I think is really great. Sometimes it's harder to make cards for men generally. So I think it's nice when you do get a stamp set that's kind of tailored more that way. So looking ahead to the next issue of Creative Stamping, we have got this Crafting with Friends. This is a stamp set and an embossing folder as well. And this is then combined with Crafter's Companion. So I'm really looking forward to this. Obviously being a big card maker and crafter myself, that's going to be perfect. And I'm actually really looking forward to making something other than sort of Christmas cards. But for now, let's get into today's cards. I'm actually going to be making two, so I wanted to show you kind of one design and how you can then take that design and create a second card of a different size. So I've got one card which is a 7 by 5 inch, and I've got another card which is 5.5 by 4.25. I've taken a paper pack, a 6 by 6 inch paper pack, and I've just cut down this backing paper. I wanted it to fit on the 7 by 5, so all I did was attach the piece that I cut off the side, and I just simply attached it to the bottom of that piece. And then you've seen I just had a little bit of washi tape just so I had everything sort of lined up on the back. So that is just a way of being able to extend the paper packs that you've got if you maybe want to make a slightly bigger card. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to stamp this really large stag's head with the scene inside. So I'm doing this for two reasons. One, I really just wanted to see how well it's stamped before I actually stamped it onto my cardstock. And the second one is then we're going to create a mask from this. So I am just stamping this onto just some regular stamping white cardstock. And I did end up stamping it twice, but I just thought it really was a great stamp. I did get it more crisp the second time, but I felt like if I was not using a stamping platform and just using an acrylic block, I think, you'd still get a really fab impression. So I'm just going to pop that to one side for the moment. I just want that to sort of dry a little bit, and then I'm going to actually stamp my main stag on the piece of cardstock that I've cut down to go onto my card. So I've cut it down so we've got a nice border so you can see that patterned paper behind it. But this is a really, really big stamp. So originally, I was just going to make the 5.5 by 4.25 size, which is an A6 size, but then the stag head was just so big, this stamp was so big, I decided then to make another one and do it as a 5 by 7. So you can see I'm just stamping this right into the middle. Again, I'm going to double stamp it. This is the Versafine Onyx Black, and this just gave it a really fab impression. So you could then colour inside this image as well. There's loads of techniques you could do, but I really just loved keeping it that sort of simple black and white. So the idea, again, like I said, is to create maybe a little bit more of a masculine sort of style card. So like I said at the beginning, I wanted to sort of have one kind of design and show you that you can have one card design, but you can adapt that using different products, different stamp sizes, things that you've got, so you can keep that same design, but then you can sort of replicate that with different products. That was kind of my idea of making two. So I'm going to stamp on this smaller piece now, and then when I went to take out my stencil, I realised then that you had the inside of those stencils in the back of the packaging, which I never noticed to begin with. And I think that is just really great because you can use that as a mask if you need to. I do end up doing that later on, but it just means then you can stretch that even further. So you could have that stag, you could do a bit of ink blending around the edge of that, and you could just have that stag outline, almost like a sun ray coming from it, that type of thing. So I just think that's really brilliant that they've also included that. But now for this smaller card, so you can see that I've just popped my stencil down where I want it to go. I'm just masking off the section so I don't get any ink on any part of the exposed cardstock. And then I'm going to ink this up. I wanted to do something that's going to fit in with the patterned paper, so I wanted to use quite neutral kind of colours, nothing sort of too bright. So I've gone with this wild mushroom. This is from the Prism World of Colour range, and I really love this mushroom. It's a real it's not the, obviously it's sort of like a grey brown colour, but I think it's really great for not having such a light grey where you wouldn't see it. And then I didn't want to go with a super dark grey because I'm going to stamp over again in that Onyx black ink as well. So I thought this was just I think this is a really great colour to have in the range. So you can see I've literally just really basic stamped through that I've blended through that stencil, and in a second then I'm going to take the coordinating stamp and we're going to stamp that super easy. I do keep looking at the stamps included in this set and sort of like getting more and more ideas of different types of projects that you could create. So I really love the idea of using that big stag's head and maybe creating like a galaxy type background. So we've created that mask so you could stamp it, mask it, and then create a really beautiful like galaxy blended background coming from it. I think, you know, these don't have to be typical Christmas cards. They can just be sort of wintry cards, and again, like I've said throughout, great for those kind of masculine cards. So here you can see that I just lined up the coordinating stamp with my stenciled image, and I'm just inking that up again with that Onyx black and just stamping that. So I put it in my stamping platform just to make sure that I get it in the right spot. But I really love all the little details in here. So the sections that are on going into the antlers, I think it's not sort of, there's enough gap in it where you can still see that colour behind it, but it's not so busy where you can't really see what the shape is, or, you know, I just think it's a really beautiful stamp. So that is part of that stamping done. So the next thing I'm going to do is, again, I wanted to use some more of the stamps and the borders. So there is a section in the magazine showing you how you could create a tartan background. So I'm definitely going to have a look at doing that, but I just wanted to use those sort of border stamps and just create something a little bit different, something I don't tend to do, and just create a little focal point kind of behind our stag here. And really, I didn't really want too much going on. I wanted it to be kind of almost a flat image, so like a one layer. I do end up putting the sentiment onto a foam strip, but I wanted it to kind of be, you know, as flat as possible. And again, just something a little bit different. You don't always have to fill every gap with colour or anything like that. You can have sort of white sections, but having just that little bit of detail on there, I think it does make all the difference. So you can see these 4 stamps down the bottom, so you could restamp these and create sort of longer sections of it, but like I said in the magazine, it does sort of show you different ways that you can use it to create sort of that tartan kind of effect. But I didn't want to do that because I had that paper already from that paper pack, so I'm just going to use it just along the side. So I'm using my stamping platform just to make sure that I get this stamp straight. I did struggle a little bit with the sides not quite sticking to the lid of the stamping platform, and I didn't get necessarily the best impressions from all of them, but I don't know if that was maybe more to do with the ink that I use. So I do end up using all 4. So the first one I'm inking up again in that same mushroom colour, that wild mushroom, because I just think that's perfect, and it matches really well with those backing papers. So the next one I've got again, so I'm just putting it in, I'm just trying to line it up. So I'm using one of the distress inks. I think this was Victorian Velvet, but this really didn't stamp very well at all. I don't know if it was because I couldn't get the end of it to stick to my stamping platform, so there was a section that was touching the paper first, so you can see at that very left hand side. I do end up off camera going back in. I just put a little bit of the ink onto my glass mat, and then I just took a paintbrush and just kind of filled it in a little bit. But I've been trying to experiment just a little bit with like the distress inks and some of the other ink pads that I've got, just to see how well they stamp and things. I do feel like the ink pads that work best for me if I'm stamping things like this or sentiments is definitely going to be my Prism ink pads. I just think that it doesn't bead up on the surface and things. But I mean, you've got to try these things to know what works and what doesn't work, and really that's kind of the process I'm going through here. But you can see that I'm just having them come off the left hand side, so they are coming off the paper from that side, and then I'm just trying to alter how far across the page they go. So when we take our mask up, you're only then going to see the bits on the side. Obviously this is not going over our stamped image, but I wanted to kind of have it look a little bit more random. I just wanted that little bit of extra detail, so you know, whether you use kind of ribbon and things traditionally, you know, you don't want to necessarily put things like that on a masculine card. It's just then using other images within the stamp sets. It's all stuff that goes together really well. Obviously that's why they put those sort of stamp collections together. I don't mind how it looked. The green, I used the bundled sage. That colour definitely worked better, but I don't know if that was more because of the type of stamp that I used. But like I said, I just wanted that extra little bit of decorativeness on the side of the card. So the next thing we're going to do to finish this card off is we're going to stamp the sentiment. So I'm just using, again, that Onyx black ink pad. So I'm just inking up that stamp, and I do stamp it a few times. This is "'Tis the Season," so I want to make sure I get that really dark black image, and that's going to go really well with our stamped stag image as well. And I'm going to cut it down, trim it down, just using a guillotine, my mini guillotine. And I want it to be quite a small sentiment. I don't really necessarily want it to be huge, but I love the block chunkiness of it. Again, I think that's perfect for a masculine kind of card. There's nothing kind of delicate about it. And I just think it goes really, really well with this. So I did originally stamp this in a really dark red, but I think it was a little too red to go with sort of the colour palette that we picked. It was quite kind of more muted sort of tones. But I did bring back then that bundled sage, and I did end up then just inking over the top of this sentiment, because I thought it looked a little too white on white, but then I didn't want to kind of bulk anything up by matte and layering it. So I'm just going over that really lightly with my blending tool, just to get that colour sort of on there, and it then will pick up the green that we've already stamped on our project, and then also it's going to pick up that little bit of colour from the backing paper that we're going to be using. So now we've got that finished, you can go ahead really and just adhere our card together. So you can see I've got my blank card base. This is just a regular side folding pre-made card. I've then got my patterned paper, which then I've extended from a 6x6 to just under a 5x7 piece, and again, so you can see the washi tape just holding those pieces together. And I made sure that I really carefully sort of lined up the lines, so you really couldn't see that I'd made this piece bigger by putting two pieces together. So all I'm doing then is just using a tape pen just to adhere down our pieces. So the second card, I did the exact same process. So again, like I said, I wanted to create two cards using the same design, but just altering things, you know, for different sizes and things like that. So I did off camera, I did stamp those same lines exactly the same in a slightly different pattern. I don't want it to be exactly the same in that sense. And I wanted to have a go using the different colours on the different actual stamps themselves, see if they stamped better in different colours, but pretty much followed that same process. So the last thing I did for this card was just pop that sentiment onto some foam pads, and then it finished it completely. So now we can just pop together this smaller card. So you can see I've stamped those stripes in exactly the same sort of way. I've, you know, varied how they look and the colours that I've used, but pretty much the same design. So I do really love the idea of having that one design and then being able to change that depending on your card size, depending on what products you can fit onto that, but you can still kind of follow that same design. And I think these cards came out really great, and I am really loving this Winter Stags stamp set. So that's it for these cards today. If you're interested in any of the products that I've used in today's video, be sure to expand that description box down below and you'll find links down there. And there's also a link as well to my brand new blog if you want to check that out. So the next video will be looking at the newest issue of Die Cutting Essentials. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on that video or any future videos. So if you did like these cards, then please give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. So that's it for today's video. Thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.